Hello and very warm welcome to the Arise interview. 60 minutes of big questions about the big stories from the news and around the world with fresh insights and critical analysis. I am Christian Ogodo. Thanks so very much for joining us. Coming up in the next hour, can Siemens save Nigeria's chaotic power sector? The Nigerian government has agreed to a deal with the German energy company in an attempt to fix the country's unreliable electricity power supply. The country's President Muhammadu Buhari gave a nod to the relevant government agencies for the pre-engineering and concessionary financing aspects of the project with Siemens. Can this deal be a turning point for Nigeria's chaotic power supply? We'll have an in-depth analysis in our discuss. And later, the U.S. is pushing for an independent probe into allegations by a group of whistleblowers against the president of the African Development Bank, Nigeria's Akinwumi Adesina, having been cleared by the bank's ethics committee of all charges brought against him. There are doubts about the ability of the AFDB to conduct an independent investigation. However, many African governments and former heads of state, spearheaded by President Olusegun Obasanjo, former Nigeria's president, have been rallying behind Akinwumi Adesina, calling on the board of the bank to ignore an independent investigation. We'll weigh into these issues, all coming up in a moment. Ordinarily, the new deal with the German giant Siemens should present a new ray of hope for the wobbling power sector in Nigeria. But many are in doubt if the Nigerian government can keep its end of the bargain. The agreement between the federal government and Siemens, signed in July last year, entailed rehabilitating and then expanding the country's electricity capacity to 25,000 megawatts by 2025. It is a 6-year power deal that will be implemented in 3 phases. This tall order can only be achieved through dedication and commitment. The major bottlenecks seem to be the nation's transmission and distribution system. Once fixed, the third and final phase will be to drive generation capacity and overall grid capacity to 25,000 megawatts. Let's take a look at how it all began.
Using private sector.
I am therefore very pleased with the positive feedback from private sector owners of the distribution companies who have all endorsed government's intervention to engage Siemens on this end-to-end plan to modernize the electricity grid. Our goal is simply to deliver electricity to Nigerian businesses and homes with our strong commitment to the development of Mambila Hydroelectric and the various solar projects under development across the country. The long-term power generation capacity will ensure adequate energy mix and sustainability in the appropriate balance between urban and rural electrification.
Okay, for more on this, let's turn now to Rumundaka Wonodi, who is the founder and CEO, ZKJ Energy Partners Limited. He was also the pioneer MD and CEO of the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading, NBET. Thanks so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Nigeria's electricity problem, tells a lot about the nation and its development. What do you think have been the core issues why Nigeria has never generated 5,000 megawatts of electricity?
So first thing is that we've done 5,000 a couple of times, but I think the thing is, why can't we just stay steady and maintain a basic 5,000, just recently dropped to 3,000 megawatts. And I think that there are a lot of system issues in it. There are issues about leadership, but let's just go back to the Siemens transaction that you're talking about. It's that we found out that the power sector is made up of different pieces of a value chain. So you have gas supply, you have generation, transmission, and distribution, and then what have you. And what we found out is that while we have some excess generation, not for the country we are,
not being taken by the bulk buyer.
Well, not being able to be taken either into the system. So there is a commercial side of things, and then there's a physical side of things. We are dealing with the physical side now, which is that we have about 13,000 megawatts installed, and we're only able to get about 3,500 to homes and businesses.
Why? Why is that so?
First, the transmission capacity, you know, the way you look at it, could be about 7,000. The distribution could be about 6,000. And then within the distribution, you have very old cables and things like that by the time you push power, because they're inadequate, you begin to have a lot of what you call technical losses. So they heat up, and then you lose power of that power. So there is a lot of things that is wrong with the system. We have a lot of losses, commercial, because of lack of metering. We have technical losses, and then we have constraints due to the size of it.
In harnessing this so much power generated.
Exactly. So
okay, let's look at the Siemens deal. What is the, key factors in this deal that Siemens is coming to do that other major electricity generating companies like GE have failed to do?
Well, I don't think that this is a matter of whether GE could have done it or they have not done it. I think that Nigeria is just adopting to work with Siemens because of what they were able to do in Egypt. In Egypt, working with the Egyptian government, they were able to deliver about 16,000 megawatts over a short period of time, right? So I think Nigeria is looking to replicate that, where it has decided to do this in phases. 3 phases, just like you said. The first phase is to take these 5,000 to 7,000 by the year 2021, and then by the year 2023, they take it up to 11,000, and beyond that, they will take it up to 25,000 megawatts, getting to homes and businesses, not just installed capacity. But the first phase, as we understand it, is that they're going to put in some transformers, improve the payment system, some metering, and a few other things that would allow.
That shouldn't be the key issue now. I think the key issue from what you're saying is that, look, if we're generating about 5,000, 7,000 megawatts and we can't, take them off the generation stations, then we should be talking about improving the transmission lines and the distribution facilities.
Exactly. So, when we say transmission, there's an interface between transmission and distribution. So the substations there, you have to actually open them up. And then the transformers that you have within the cities and within the load areas, some of them are inadequate for the sizes of the load that they need to
or obsolete.
So they're obsolete, so you have to replace them, either upgrade them with bigger ones, or you replace what is existing there. So it's about debottling the transmission network and the distribution network in the first phase, because already we have the generation in the country that is installed, right? So that's the first thing.
Yeah. The problem, even with the generation, is that a lot of the plants are idle. Some maybe in Olong-Shogo, some have really been completed. I know of the Mabon Dadinkowa Energy Service, about between 39 and 40 megawatts and the rest. And of course, that if that comes on stream, it will serve the Northeast very well, particularly with the Ashaka Cement Company there, and help drive industrialization in that area.
Well, yes, I think that, so that's one other thing. You're thinking about grid reliability, because, for instance, you have somewhere like Kanu, and because there's no closed generation, you have to add some form of grid enhancing instruments like capacitors, bank, to allow power to be actually moved up to the north. So the alternative to that is to have generation in the north. So Mabon will play a part. And then I know that there was a plan to have a 10 megawatt wind farm in Katsina it's been struggling.
Yeah.
But then once you have some pockets of generation, that helps reliability. It's not that we don't have enough generation right now, but that is an issue of reliability, to be able to push power to the north with less.
And is that not been the same problem with the gas power plants and gas supply? You know, the pricing of gas, seeing it as a national security asset and the rest. And the Nigerian gas company would say, look, we're being owed so much, so we're going to supply the gas again to some of these generating plants.
You know, so what you're talking about is a matter of payment, right? So there are so many ways that if we tie into this program, and actually if government is able to deliver this, it will change not just the physical, but the commercial aspects of it. So one of the things that you find out is that the bulk electricity signed a couple of power purchase agreements with generation companies, but because of the issue of not being able to evacuate those the power, they've been reluctant to activating the power purchase agreements. Without a power purchase agreement, you cannot have a firm gas supply agreement. So you find gas companies not very willing to make the investment to support the power plant. So if you open this and you're able to put the commercial contracts in place, then you see, you know, probably better gas supply to the power plants. And one other thing is, I don't think it's about the price. I think it's about the payment, right? Because we have industries within this country that take power and actually pay lower price than the power that, you know, the price that it goes to. It goes to power, right? So payment is very important to the gas suppliers. If you have constant and regular payments, I think that the pricing is competitive.
And for the discos, how much and how well do you think they've been doing and will play in this new role that Siemens is coming into? Because there was opposition to Siemens when they were, you know, when this contract was being signed.
Well, I think that these are the things, you know, the government says that we've carried the discos diligently for the past 15 months. You know, I think that as they go into these pre-engineering works and they talk about the concessionary financing terms, everybody's going to begin to talk about how the money is paid back, the on-lending to the shareholders. What does it mean? You know, it says it's a convertible loan. The way convertible loan works is that I give you the loan, and if you are able to pay back, I might convert it to equity. So at what rate, if government were to convert that to equity, how much of that would that be? So,
okay, thanks very much. We want to take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the crux of this new agreement with Siemens by the Nigerian government. You're still watching the Arise interview. We've got more still ahead. Stay with us. You're welcome back to the Arise interview with me, Christian Ogodo. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Before this deal elapses, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari asked Siemens to assiduously work alongside the Transmission Company of Nigeria to achieve the objective of the signed deal. The essence of this deal is to deliver stable electricity to Nigerian businesses and homes. To this end, preserving the integrity and transparency of the procurement process is important. Siemens will be solely responsible for nominating its key partners for engineering, procurement, and construction to perform all onshore works. There will be no middlemen. Nigeria's power supply remains abysmal, and this new deal might be that ray of new hope at the end of the tunnel.
On that roadmap, we will enable the country and its companies to increase the delivery capacity of power in the first phase to 7,000 megawatt, in the second phase up to 11,000, and in the third phase to 25,000 megawatt. That will significantly enhance the nation's and the country's power supply. That will also enhance the country to get started into the next industrial phase, so that we believe we can actually very much benefit together, the government, the people of Nigeria, and of course Siemens as a company.
If you look at the amount of losses that are being experienced, you know, in the entire power sector itself, they are huge. We're talking about double-digit losses, ranging between 30 and in some discos almost 70% ATC and C losses. So that's a strong signal that the way that the market is currently structured is not sustainable. And if we don't improve the critical infrastructure in terms of the wheeling capacity of TCN and also the distribution capacity of the discos, then this kind of situation will persist, for a long time.
Okay, I still have with me in the studios Rumundaka Wonodi, who is the founder and CEO ZKJ Energy Partners Limited, and was also the pioneer MD and CEO of the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading, NBET. Thanks very much. In that clip, we heard about some of the, overriding functions of Siemens in this new electricity deal. One is that it's going to eliminate middlemen, and two, they will determine who their suppliers and manufacturers, are in driving this 5-6 year project. What are your thoughts about the elimination of middlemen in taking into cognizance the Nigerian Local Content Act?
Well, I think that these are euphemisms for, government trying to actually take its own people out of the whole equation, right? So they want to get away from the bureaucracy of government procurement and influences. So government recognizes that within itself, it might not be able to help itself
to achieve the goals.
To achieve the goal of being gatekeepers to its own program, so they know there could be political influences in trying to get contracts. So they said to Siemens, please, you take over this, be responsible fully for this, procure your partners. I doubt that government could actually be encouraging them to bypass the local inputs and professionals in this market. So at the end of the day, it says Siemens and its partners, and we expect that Siemens will do the right thing by engaging
Nigerian professionals
and firms that are competent to do this work. I think that what government is doing is to say, we've had experiences in TCN. We have so many projects that have never been completed. We have power plants under NIPP and projects that are still
lying fallow. And this time around, this is a government to government. And if we're going to hold if we're going to pay back to the German government, then its agent has to be responsible for everything here. That it's the understanding. But I suspect that somewhere along the line, even Siemens will like to also cut out of all the responsibility, because there are things that they might not be able to control. Well, Siemens is not new to Nigeria. I know they were part of the Ogorode power stations in the 70s and probably early 80s and the rest. Siemens, ABB, so they have, vast experience in the energy sector. But let's look at the role of the transmission company of Nigeria. Is government wholly owned by the federal government of Nigeria. NBET, the same thing. So what kind of complementary role can they be playing away from, some of the handicaps or challenges they've been having?
Well, straight up, transmission company of Nigeria is an integral part of this process. I mean, they're the two firms that the presidency called out their names. The Bureau of Public Enterprises, which represents the shareholding in the distribution companies, and transmission company, which at the end of the day is going to manage these assets. The investment that will be made in transmission and what have you will be managed by transmission. And part of the program also includes training. So you expect that people out of transmission will be trained on how to manage the new systems, the power systems that will be put in place in this. For the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, I think that its role then is that it has a clearer pathway of increasing the generation of the country by its procurement. So when it buys power, it could then tie them to the delivery of adequate capacity down the line. It will not enter into a PPA and have a power plant built, and then the power will be stranded. So it can then actually, that way, schedule out its procurement and when power plants come online. So that will be its complementary role in this business. But, for TCN, is an integral part of this program.
Okay, at least to move the electricity supply in Nigeria forward. But let us look, this new deal, is Siemens in any way going to come up with new plans?
Power plants?
Yeah.
Well, I know that
because we've got loads of idle power plants. I can still tell you for real that TAM for the Kainji power plant was probably done some 15 years ago by Nigerian engineers, then when it was under NEPA and the rest, 40 years or so after it was built.
Yes, I mean, the Siemens will come up with new power plants. I know that they have some partnerships where they're looking to provide the turbines, OEMs. When it comes to original equipment manufacturers, there are not so many of them in the power space. So you have Siemens, you have GE, you have Mitsubishi, Hitachi, Alstom, and Saldo. So Siemens is one of the leaders, and to the extent that you're looking to expand the generation base, there's a scope of work for them. I know that they are working with the Nigerian, the NMPC on some power projects that are also part of this 25,000 megawatts, about 900 megawatts in Kaduna that's been developed. I know also
it's going to be a gas-powered plant.
It's going to be a gas-powered plant. There are other power plants in Akwa Ibom, the QIPP, which both Siemens and GE, either one of them could be playing a part there. And then in Kwale, other power plants. So there's a portfolio of projects.
Kwale is by Ajib.
Kwale is by NAOC. That's Ajib company.
Nigerian, Ajib Oil Company,
So there are a couple of projects that are in the works that are gas-fired, and most of them driven by, NMPC and its partners that will join and be part of the 25,000 megawatts. And I know Siemens, GE, and the rest of them are working hand in hand with the NMPC.
Some energy experts fear that even the 25,000 megawatts, if it comes on stream and the rest, because of the explosion of development that Nigeria is going to see, whether from small businesses to big time manufacturing and what have you, that it's even inadequate for the kind of the size of this country, its population, and its economic, importance.
Yeah, 25,000 could be small. It might not be large enough for everybody's, but let's do the 7,000, the 11,000, the 15,000, the 20,000, and we get there. Power on its own, it doesn't quite. It's not standing alone in the economy. You need to be sure that the incentives around manufacturing is there so that sector will grow in agriculture, in what have you, in industries, basically. They have to be complementary so that you have someone who can actually pay for the power. I can tell you right now that if you put 10,000 megawatts there, there are a lot of people who think that they want them, but there are challenges, people paying the tariff that we already have in the market. So you have to have a productive set of consumer base to be able to pay for that 25,000. That's what you're saying.
So no doubt that by the time, the gradual increase of electricity, just like the discos and the others have been agitating that the cost should be increased. The cost of generating a megawatt of electricity, if I remember very well, 5-7 years ago, is about $1 million.
For building 1 megawatt of power plant, the rule of thumb is to say that 1 megawatt of power plant will cost you $1 million. $1 million, right? So that's the rule of thumb. Yeah. So if we say that the country needs 1,000 megawatts, we'll be thinking about making an investment of $1 billion to get that in generation. Then you have to think about the complementary distribution and transmission and gas supply to get you there. Right, but I think that what you're probably talking about now is what is the price, when delivered to distribution companies. So
absolutely.
So it ranges from 12, 13 naira to 35 naira, depending on the source. Whether it's coming from either a hydro or it's coming from gas. And even within the gas, you have different prices. You have prices for the IOC. The ones operated by Shell and Ajib.
The international oil companies.
Oil companies who the capacity price is reduced because of the way it was funded, the fiscal regime for that. And then you have the successor generation company. And then you have recently Azura, which is most expensive in the market because of the financing terms around it. So they come at different prices and get to the market. Yeah.
Well, thanks so very much. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed that this is a good deal for Nigeria if all things are equal. Let me thank you so very much, Rumundaka Wonodi, as the former and pioneer MD, CEO of Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading company, and presently you're the founder and CEO of ZKJ Energy Partners Limited. Thanks for coming on the Arise interview.
Thank you.
You're still watching the Arise interview. We've got plenty more still ahead. Stay with us.